couple weeks ago, I reviewed this I5R briefly. I wouldn't even call it review. But in that video, I basically said that it's not worth the extra $7 for the rechargeable version of this flashlight. And I am sorry to say that I am very wrong about that statement. And in this, I hope to explain why this is a much better flashlight than I originally thought, and why you may actually want to be considering this if you're looking for a AA powered flashlight. So I hope you will give me a few minutes of your time so that I can set the record straight. All right, let's start from the beginning, shall we? So this, of course, is the I5R. Now, this is pretty much identical to the i5T, its past generation, with the exception of the little patterning at the top. That's the only distinctive markings that you'll be sure you can determine which one is which. It's about the same weight, and the clip's the same. Pretty much everything else is the same. It's everything inside that really is different. It's the stuff that I really missed and should have been more careful about in my past first look. Now, starting at the front, this has changed dramatically. Now, the lenses are the same, but the emitters are completely different. In the past generation, we had a cool white emitter was coming in about 6,500 Kelvin. This one is a neutral white. You get about 5,000 Kelvin. And it is so much nicer on the eyes than compared to past generations. It also explains a lot about output drop when using different fuel sources, which I'll get to in just a second. So when it comes to fuel sources, it comes with a proprietary battery designed by Olight. Now, this battery is USB Type-C rechargeable. It has 1400 milliamp hours and it runs at 2.4 volts. Now, this is kind of an unusual voltage for a battery in this size range. You usually have lithiums that are disposable in the store that run at 1.5 volts, or you have the hot rod batteries, as I like to call them, like this one. Now, this is a Vape Cell H10, one of the best when you're talking about overpowered batteries. It is 3.7 volts and it has a continuous maximum discharge of 10 amps. This is rocket fuel for a flashlight. When you put this in one, it's either going to do one of two things. It's either going to explode, not explode, but it's going to melt, or it's going to give you the best possible output. So do not use one of these in the wrong flashlight. Just fair warning. And this flashlight, the I5R, because of the changes to the electronics, is not going to melt from this battery. In fact, the way it interacts with this battery is very unique. And I want to talk about that once we cover a few other aspects of runtime. So, now, AA's, or rechargeable batteries, it's going to be very similar to the past generation. But there's one major exception. When you run the flashlight and click the button, bring it up to the high mode, in the old models, you will get 3 minutes of 300 lumens before it drops down to 150. In this next generation, you're going to get 10 minutes, 3 times as long, before it drops down to 150 lumens. Now, using the exact same formulation of battery, you're going to get a lower starting output with the I5R at about 225 lumens, but that's going to run a lot longer. Both of those flashlights are going to have about a little over 2 hour runtime from all of the data that I can see. And I will put all the links to this down in the description to places where you can read and see bar graphs. You can actually see the true output of these flashlights. It's where you start using the other batteries that things get really interesting. Using the proprietary battery, the 14 milliamp hour 2.4 volt battery, you're going to get over 3 hours of runtime. Not only will it start at 350 lumens, go for 10 minutes, which is higher, but it will also run at 150 lumens for a total of 3 hours. You get an additional hour of runtime with just this battery. That's already really good. On the low modes, you're going from 15 hours to 35 hours, which is ridiculous. It's more than double the runtime at the 15 lumen setting. That's incredible. And there's a lot of questions left to be seen I just watched a review about this flashlight where they demonstrated how it can be used with an off-the-shelf disposable lithium, which runs at 1.5 volts. Now, the starting output is under 350 lumens, but what's weird is it runs at the next drop down, 150, for about 5 hours. That's a really long runtime, like a really long runtime for that output. That might put it into the best possible category when it comes to endurance of a flashlight in this size range. And when it came to the alkaline, it was much more extreme. We're talking 20 hours extreme. Now, I don't know how many lumens it was actually producing at that point. I would love to test that and see, but that's an incredible output. So yeah, I think there's a lot to say about this being better than the original. And is it worth $7? Heck yeah. And yeah, that's not all. I also got this wrong, and I'm sorry about that. When it comes to using this battery, something else happens with this that's very weird. You don't get two modes, you get one mode, and it looks to be about 200 lumens. Now, I initially thought it was running in its high mode, so I put it out and wanted to see when it would drop down to a lower output. And it never does. 45 minutes in, it was still running at 200 plus lumens with this battery. And what's crazy to me is not only was it running at 200 plus lumens, it was nearly cool to the touch. I mean, it was just barely warm. Now, it could be because this is a copper flashlight, but even if it was aluminum conducts heat very, very well. Which tells me that whatever they're doing in this flashlight, they're translating more of that energy to light than they are to the heat. And that is exactly what everyone's trying to achieve with a flashlight. Ideally, converting that energy in the most efficient way possible. Conclusion is that this is definitely making it into my top 10 AA flashlights right now. It's not going to move into top 5 probably ever, and that's mostly because it doesn't have a moonlight mode. If they had 3 modes of relatively good spacing in the same mechanics that this has, yes, this probably would make top 5. Even though it has 500 Kelvin and it's not the highest CRI, I think it absolutely still makes it up there. The endurance of this flashlight is really off the charts. So more testing needs to be done. And that's what should be the conclusion, and I should have made that conclusion at the beginning of the end of the last video. So I apologize. I apologize to Olight, and I apologize to you guys for leading you to believe that this was not worth it, because it definitely is. So keep an eye out for sales. When it goes on sale is when I recommend getting one, and you can get one relatively cheap. So check that out, and I think you're going to be pretty happy with it, especially if you use your flashlight a lot. So there you go. You guys have a great day. We'll talk again soon.